Good morning, everybody. This is Aspasia Karras. I am a publisher at the Sunday Times Lifestyle. And I thought in this time of COVID, it would be quite nice to pursue a project which I'd wanted to do before the time of COVID. And I thought no better time to start than now with Zoom. Zoom is our friend, and YouTube and all these fantastic mediums. The project is called How She Does It, and it's really an attempt to speak to some of South Africa's most compelling, fascinating, successful women and ask them some questions. How do they actually do it? How does she do it? And so I'm not sure if it's a question, how she does it, or a statement, how she does it, but we'll get to the bottom of that. And first up this week is the magnificent, compelling Lara Foot, who is a multi-award winning playwright, director, and producer. She's the CEO of the Baxter Theatre and the artistic director. The Baxter Theatre Centre, she'll tell us if it's a centre or a theatre. I think it's both, at GCT, and also a former Rolex protege to Sir Peter Hall, which is very impressive. And we'll talk a bit about this Rolex mentor protege program, and a Sundance fellow. So a terribly impressive start. I hope a good beginning. And Lara, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your show. I believe this is the first one, so it's an honor.
So, Lara, it's peculiar times. It feels like it was but yesterday, and yet a million years ago when I was at the Baxter Theatre for the Rolex Mentor Protege program, where you, through your considered efforts, managed to get Rolex to bring this fantastic program to South Africa. And you were one of these proteges. So maybe let's start from there. And it was such a wonderful experience to see the Baxter kind of glistening and glowing in all its glory. Each area full of fantastically interesting people, performances, conversations. The most I was rubbing elbow, bumping Walisa Yinkia, who's basically God. I think he's the prototype that Morgan Freeman used. All sorts of fascinating people. Tell us a bit about that as a happy moment just before the lockdown.
Yeah, it does feel like another time, another world. I mean, at the time I was marveling at how all these people from all over the world could come together in this extraordinary event. And only how artists are able to do that, thanks to Rolex. And it was an extraordinary weekend, and we just made it. Really, I mean, if we had planned it a week or two later, we would have had to cancel. So it does feel like another time.
In lockdown, the Design and Darba had some of their speakers still in lockdown in Cape Town. It was locked down in Cape Town.
We had 250 international guests from all over the world, so we literally made it by a week or two. But as you say, that just feels like another time. Right now, I feel like we.
Tell us a bit about that protege program. So you were a protege of Sir Peter Hall. That was really was that once you had already started working at the Baxter as artistic director, or was it just after your stint at the Market Theatre?
It was just after my stint at the Market. I was, I think, 34, 35 at the time when I got the award. And I was just lucky, really, because it depends very much on the mentor of the year. So some mentors will go, oh, well, they want someone at the beginning of their career. Some mentors, like Peter, wanted someone more established, more mature to work with. So, you get this sort of letter in the post that says, would you send in your portfolio and we'd like you to apply. And then it goes through sort of months of narrowing down until eventually they get the last three. And then those three go and visit the mentor and you have an interview and then the mentor decides. And I think in my favor for once was that I was a little older than the others. Whereas with another mentor, you know, you'd need to be young. It just meant to happen. And then I spent all of a year with Sir Peter, like on and off in London. But the relationship went, you know, years beyond that. And Rolex very kindly makes it possible for you to continue the relationship. And you know, we meet every 2 years in one of these huge functions like we had at the Baxter in February. So we've all grown up together. It's amazing to look at my fellow proteges of that time and see, you know, what everyone's done and achieved and how we've grown. And you know,
So I touch on this word protege because obviously you had a talent for the theatre, which when did you know that the theatre was the thing for you? And was it just the theatre? Did you think perhaps film or I don't know?
Yeah, you know, I knew theatre was for me when I was 17 years old and I saw a play at the Market Theatre called Born in the RSA, which was essentially about censorship and you know, it was a protest play during apartheid. And I saw that play and I went, you know, talk about enlightenment. I mean, I suddenly understood what was happening in our country. And I knew then that whatever those guys were doing on stage, I wanted to do. But I'm pretty certain now it had very little to do with theatricality. You know, I'm not from a dance theater world, and a lot to do with politics and to do with protest, really. So it sort of spoke to me as an activist. And that's where I've remained, using theatre to activate, be it, you know, very humane or social issues or political issues. But for me, there's nothing like theatre to bring people together in a common purpose and a common understanding. And it became like a church in a way, I suppose, for me, a very sacred place of truth and exploration and play. So that was my introduction, and that's where I stayed, thinking at first that I would need to be an actress to be involved in that world. And then going to Wits and studying acting and realizing that I was quite lousy. But luckily, somewhere along the line, realized that I could write and direct. Thank goodness. So I've stayed in theatre my whole life, and I imagine I will stay, you know, forever.
I mean, it's quite a difficult medium, possibly in South Africa. I mean, I imagine the contrast between, say, a British theatrical, I'm going to St. Peter Hall in London, or America, where the theatre going culture is strong, and an international kind of market, in fact. People fly to see these plays. I don't know if they'll be flying anymore, but in the immediate future. But in South Africa, it has extra challenges, a whole added layer of complication and struggle to make theatre. Maybe you can talk.
It has extra challenges, but it also has extra opportunities. You know, there's a whole market of audience members that are just starting to attend theatre and are new theatre goers, new funders, and of course an extraordinary amount of talent. So, and with that comes innovation and excitement. So on the one hand, you can look at the old traditional theatre in England and America, anywhere in Europe, and go, well, we kind of know what we're going to get, and we even know the audience that's going to be there. But if I look at what's happening in South Africa, and specifically at the Baxter, um, and seeing this new audience and seeing the excitement, and then this just burgeoning talent that is getting, finding their opportunities and finding their home at the theater. I think that's terribly exciting. So yes, the challenges, they're always going to be. And I mean, if you speak to British artists, American artists, they'll tell you the same thing. Oh, we don't have funding. So hard, being an artist. Wherever you go in the world, people say the same thing.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that's part of the positive attitude that you're manifesting. Would you say that's like an essential characteristic? Seeing the opportunity in places where others perhaps don't.
Yeah, for me, I always look for the gap, and especially in times of crisis, there's often a gap where you are needed, you know. Um, and I suppose part of creativity is coming up with ideas and plans to make a plan. So I think maybe even from my childhood, one always had to make a plan, had to sort of think of ways to get through issues or to make everything okay. You know, create a biography or a narrative, which was palatable. So I think that is part of who I am, seeing the possibility in people and situations. Yeah, maybe I would say that's maybe a strength.
Uh,
Talk
what
about the
else?
weaknesses as well, if you like. I mean,
As
it's
a
not.
woman in the South African sort of landscape, how do you feel uh, that has that been a challenge, say, in the theatrical world? I mean, there was.
In the beginning, I didn't think so. When I was younger, I didn't think so. I was very feisty, and I just, I did what I needed to do. But as I've gotten older and worked with more sort of bureaucratic establishments, I have um, been aghast at times in terms of the sort of inherent sexism, and there's a frustration certainly in terms of um, how one is seen, I guess, just automatically, when it comes to, especially when it comes to business or governance. It's kind of, it's a man's world. Um,
Even in the theatre, I must say,
yeah, it is. So one has to be manipulative at times, and it's exhausting, really, because you really just want to be heard and understood. And I mean, uh, I have built a reputation now, and I guess I'm heard, but I still see it. I see this sort of, um, I don't know what it is. It's an inherent. It's the same as racism. It's an inherent ignorance about perception. Mm.
so I mean, obviously, a large proportion, one part of your work, your production value, so to speak, is like you make things, you are creative, and the other part is being administrative, running like a business essentially, and trying to do good in both those ways. How do you balance that?
Doing business is very creative. So I would say that as a theater person, I'm very good at that. Um, so it's coming up with ideas. Like right now in our situation with COVID, one has to be creative. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to make enough money? How are we going to pay people? How are we going to continue through this phase? That's a creative situation, and I think more and more businesses are starting to realize the value of creative people. Um, in terms of administration, I'm really bad at administration, so I have people that help me, and we have administrators at the Baxter who look after that. But in terms of leadership, it's the same as directing a play. You really want to get the best out of everyone you're working with. And there are ups and downs. There are times where I feel like I'm not doing well at all. I'm not
Yeah.
communicating well. And it's the same as life. You just have to reflect and go, why am I not creating? Why am I not being communicative? Am I being kind enough? Am I hearing? Am I listening? It's a constant reflection of how to be better at what you're doing. I mean, at the moment, we're living in this time where I suppose, in a way, the arts are going to have to take some kind of leadership or responsibility to unpack what is happening to us.
Or
As a
make sense of it. Tell us our stories back to us, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking this morning, what kind of plays will come after COVID, and there's been discussions on Facebook like, oh, we're going, the world is shifting, and how are we going to deal with the shift? And I think it's far more of a calamity and catastrophic than a shift. I think the world is in the eye of the storm of an existential crisis. We're living in a Samuel Beckett play right now. I was looking at some of his plays last night, you know, uh, Waiting for Godot, where Vladimir says, uh, nothing ever happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful. And
We're in that play right now.
we're in a Beckett. And I was thinking that after, when we open the theaters again, there are going to be two kinds of plays. There's going to be the whimsical, feel good, uplifting comedy musical, which we're all going to need. But there'll probably be a lot of absurdist plays as well, because what we're experiencing now is very difficult to portray or explain in real terms. And one might go back to the Becketts to to unpack this for us.
Indeed. My question to you is also perhaps like touching on the activism part of what you're about, maybe at the core of what you're about, the essence, is surely this will highlight, this period is already highlighting quite how troubled the social sort of scenarios of our country are and the world, and how can art really impact on that at this point? I mean, I love this initiative of the Baxter Radio.
Yeah. Well, there are two things there. I mean, it's very hard for art to do anything at the moment. But of course, everyone's surviving at the moment on literature and Netflix and music. So clearly, art is playing playing a part in getting everyone through this. Um, so it's difficult. I mean, all you can do is respond as a human being right now. Whether you're an artist or a teacher or a journalist. I mean, essentially, you know, the disparity that exists in our country is highlighted. Everything is more intense. So pain, love, confusion, starvation, you name it, is more intense right now. And that lens has shifted. So it was a sort of a blurry, panoramic view that we had of our town or our country, and now we have a very sharp, focused close up of uh, the disparity, and we know that there are people, that aren't eating at the moment.
Yeah.
And not only at the moment, it's always been like that. It's just gotten worse. And so for me as an activist, I'd say, well, it's time to stand up. We can't pretend to be asleep anymore as privileged people. Um, and how are you contributing to that? So I've been part of this COVID-19 fundraising drive with eMedia and HCI. And I felt, at least I was doing something there to try and sort of activate that, which is a feeding scheme which HCI are organizing. So I think first we have to respond as human beings. And then I suppose at some point we'll need to understand as artists what are our responsibilities. And first and foremost is, are the artists surviving? Are people eating? We work with thousands of artists at the Baxter, and we need to take care of them first. And once we responded to that immediacy, I suppose we will need to reflect and frame where we're at. But I don't think that's possible now because of all the uncertainty. So for me right now, I'm trying to keep the theater going with our Baxter Coffee Angels. So I'm asking
Yes.
the people to buy the Baxter cup of coffee a month, 30
Which
rand a
is
month.
30
Yeah. A decision to
It's
ask
not
the
a lot.
people. It's not a lot. Have you bought us a cup yet?
I'm
Yes,
afoot.
yes.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm not going to continue this interview.
I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee.
30 rand. 30 rand. So yeah, so that was an idea that, to ask the people, the public, to support our theatre. We're not funded by the state, and we're partially funded by the university, and we need sustainability. And so it was an outreach to everyone in the public to say, hey, listen, give us 30 rand a month, which is basically buy us a cup of coffee a month, and become a Baxter Coffee Angel. And that's been very, very successful, and we've had an overwhelming response. We still got a far way to go because I need to get 30,000 people to do that.
Well, I hope that this helps.
I hope so. And then at the same time, we did Baxter Radio. So that came from very much me going, what are kids doing in communities if they don't have Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and television? And I mean, my kids are grown up, but they're, in their 20s, and they've been at home, watching Netflix and playing games on their computers. And what are kids doing that don't have access to that? They don't necessarily have gardens or anywhere to play. Or so then I thought about radio, because there are community radios and radio stations, and maybe um, maybe the youngsters would have easier access to the radio. So I got hold of, it was really just on a whim, really. I got hold of about 10 or 11 sort of well-known actors, and I sent them a WhatsApp, and I said, listen, what about Baxter Radio? Anyway, it's a wonderful group of actors. And the next thing, we started making content, and it was a way to pay people. I used some funds that I was going to use to do a production. So, and then they got other artists on board, and in the end, we had about 40 artists that have been paid something at least over this difficult time, and we've made a whole lot of content in all different languages for all different age groups, which you will get on if you become a Baxter Angel, you'll have access to it on our website, or otherwise it's going to be on a community radio station.
Well, maybe we can also do a link on afterwards for Sunday Times readers, so that they can join the Baxter and then listen to one of the radio plays.
Yeah, you can listen to lots. We've got lots now.
Yes, fantastic. And I mean, that's a very innovative approach to the problem at hand, but also responsive, because I mean, audio has become such a huge thing. Podcasts are booming. It's a major.
I'm not one for live streaming theater,
Yeah.
Because the form of theater in itself asks an audience to participate in a focused manner and a creative way. And so whilst I understand why people are so desperate to do streaming and video content and be seen over this time, my feeling is that, nothing can replace theater. And I don't even want to even pretend that it can. I don't want to pretend that I'm going to screen plays at the Baxter and you can watch them in your home, because what's going to happen after COVID and say, well, we don't need theater, you can watch it at home. I don't want to do that.
I imagine people will be quite keen to get back into.
I think so. I want to come up, but I think the act of listening is similar to watching a play, in that there's a participation and a focus. And of course, we all grew up on Springbok radio when we were little, listening to all the stories. So that feels good to me, and I think, look, there are some people that are doing the live streaming very, very well. But it's expensive to do it well. And I don't really want to do it badly. So I'd rather not do it.
Now, I just want to quickly, before I get to some questions that people are asking, I'm going to ask this question of everyone going forward. But the first is, what would you tell? Oh no, actually, the first question is, as a leader, what is your primary modus operandi? What kind of leader are you? How do you lead?
You got to lead from the front. So yeah, you can't say something and not do it. So I mean, I'm a leader of a theater where I'm a writer and director. So if I'm going to write and direct, I'm going to do it really well. So you have to lead from the front in that way. And I guess a leader. I mean, I'm working at it all the time. I have to reflect on it, and I talk to my therapist about it. It's like, how do you best lead? And I guess it's about listening really carefully and trying to be kind and trying to put yourself in other people's shoes. I mean, I don't get it. It's so dependent on how you're feeling about yourself as well. If you're feeling lousy about yourself, it's very hard to be that person that is a kind leader. So one has to reflect all the time on how you're doing, and are you getting better, are you getting worse, why are you going through a difficult period? Because especially in theater where you've got to be so open and honest, yeah, there needs to be a lot of reflection. Yeah.
And I think a final question from my front, and then I'll hand over to our listeners, viewers, our live chat. What would you tell your younger self if you could see her now? To that 17-year-old girl who was at the Market Theatre.
Well, to that 17-year-old girl, I'd say go for it. Well done. To the younger self, I'd probably say it's going to be okay.
Well, maybe that's the message for all of us now.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. Well, yeah, one way or another it will be.
So I've got some questions here, which I'm going to try and read. Somebody's talking about your style of leadership and wondering, actually just a statement. Susan Danford is saying that your gift as a leader is seeing the potential in a good idea and in people. How do you enable that?
No, definitely. I mean, I work like that as a director as well. I really know how. I really, know how to get the best out of people. I think I know that. I can feel it. So yeah, I would say that's a good thing, good quality.
And Bongani is taking us into quite a.
Can I just go back on that? I also know who to work with. So I work with amazing people that feed me. So Susan Danford is there now. She's one of them.
Oh, really?
I've learned how to work with, find people that are lights. And then it's not difficult to lead when you're working with lights. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that way.
I have one last question before I ask you Bongani's question, which is quite political. Actually, let me ask Bongani's question. Bongani is asking if you think that the politics of the moment, is the government getting it right? And in terms of the economy, and given where it is, should we be, do do you have anything to?
I have a lot to say about it. I mean, is the government getting it right? It's like, at the moment there's such a confusion between government, uh, business, and science, and everyone, nobody seems to be getting it right. So, I mean, the government is showing leadership at the moment. And I think all around the world, people are leaning more heavily on their governments as opposed to on business and CEOs. They want, Big Daddy to put it right.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of governments are so confused, because, as I say, there's business and science as well as governance. So, and I mean, I don't know what's happening financially to our country. I know that it's terrible times, and the disparity is just probably worse than ever. So I'm not sure how government can fix that suddenly or quickly. But certainly, I think all of us as individuals need to contribute.
Um, Another question is, how are you balancing online noise and criticism? But the balance between one's social face and online criticism, which I imagine as a theatre person, a person producing things that are in the public eye, you get a lot of feedback. How
Mm.
do you deal with that? That's what I understand from this question.
It's just part of it. So it's not difficult. I mean, it's just nobody likes to be criticized, but I think I'm quite a harsh critic of myself. So I don't, and a lot of criticism comes also from ignorance and not truth. But constructive criticism is very nice. It's refreshing.
Do you
Mm.
think there's enough theatre, like criticism in the theatre? I mean, I almost feel that that area, actually being in the media myself, has kind of become quite muted.
It has, and that's because the newspapers are no longer giving space to the arts and paying good journalism. So um, we miss that, but that's also a world trend.
Yeah.
So I think more and more of that's going to happen online, and we'll see. But it's necessary. Criticism is necessary. It's part of art. Mm.
It's a feedback loop. Certainly, I will take this on board from you as constructive criticism in the media. Um, and Tracy McNeil is asking, how soon do you see the theatre industry going back to some kind of normal? And actually, as an adjunct to Tracy's question, do you see any kind of positivity coming out of this phase? Is there something, maybe new ways of looking at things? I know, for example, I was having a conversation last week that in the fashion industry, sustainability is such a huge thing. And this has almost forced the industry to really think about how to be, how to act in a more sustainable fashion for the planet, for the.
Well, I think that's true for everyone. Time to just sit and reflect and think of new strategies. Certainly, that's been very good for us at the Baxter, because we're on every night right through the year, through different spaces, and often you're running on a treadmill. And although it was, tragic that we had to close our doors, we've also done a lot of re-strategizing, rethinking about sustainability, about fundraising. So in that way, maybe the structures will be shifted a little. Maybe something positive will come out of that. Um, Certainly, artists are gonna, really have to think hard about how to go forward. I don't know when we'll open the theater. I don't think, certainly not before October. And who knows what's going to happen in August and September. But I can't imagine. First of all, the government has to give us permission. We don't have that yet. And then we're going to have to open the theater with some kind of social distancing in place. So I'm going to just take it one step at a time and aim for October.
Which is good, I feel. Abigail was asking, I mean, October is actually ambitious and fabulous. Let's all aim for October. Um, we all have been given an opportunity to reimagine the now, says Abigail. What are some of the reimaginings you have of the theatre as we have known it?
No, I really don't know. I mean, I feel like, as I say, I can only respond right now as a person, as a woman, to what's going on around me. I don't have any major plan for the theatre. The theatre is a theatre because people want to come together and they want to uh, have an intimacy of communication and connection. And I can't imagine that that will ever change. You know, the form, the shape, the cost, all of that. But that connection will never. It'll only become more necessary.
It
So
does feel very visceral to humanity,
mm,
more so now.
more so now. So what do I imagine? I would love to have. Uh, I'd love to have more people in the theater. Although our theater is quite full, I'd love to see. I'd love to see all the theaters in the country have big audiences, and be doing work that is integrated and exciting and provocative. So I see a sort of a. I have dreams for the country more than specifically for the Baxter, because I feel the Baxter's on track. Um, but we need a lot more. I hate to say it, and I don't know who's listening, but we need a lot more Baxter theatres, to be honest.
Yes, which is actually the next question, which must be from
Probably
a theatre.
sounds very arrogant. Maybe it is arrogant, but it's not. It's a necessity, because I've worked in so many theatres in the world, and one needs those homes. Communities need, artists needs those homes where
Yeah.
creativity can happen.
So obviously, from somebody in the theatre industry is going, what advice would you give other theatres in terms of being proactive during this time?
I don't know about during this time, but I can say that theatres must produce work. Too many theatres not producing work, and not employing artists and paying administrators and having empty theatres night after night after night. I get wild about this. It's a crime. You know, we have a lot of theatres in this country that stand empty at nighttime or in the daytime, and there's no excuse. That's bad management. End of story. And nobody must say it's because of money,
Yeah.
because I don't have money and we're not empty. It's just, you got to work hard. People got to work hard. Artists want a place to stay, they want a place to perform. And there are these beautiful theaters all over the country that are standing empty. It's nonsense.
Barbara Jansen is asking, do you see theatres using a hybrid model to stream the production live and also have spectators in the theatre itself? Maybe this is an answer to your social distancing questions.
Well, I don't know. I just know I'm not going to spend time doing that. So I'm sure other theaters are, and I'm sure they'll get it right. I just don't have. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time or the passion. I believe in people sitting in a theater space with actors. And yes, maybe we have to sell half as many seats so there's distance between people. But that's how I've grown up, full on theater blood. I'm not interested in streaming, or there's so much to watch on Netflix, and there's so much. Why would I choose a play that is possibly badly shot? I'd rather just watch a good movie.
Right. I'm going to close it up. I want you to give us a final thought to young people out there who see a future in the theatre, but also perhaps feel constrained right now and anxious about this path, their chosen path. What have you got to say?
I've got to say that money and energy follows work. So work, make something brilliant, Doesn't matter if you're not getting paid. You can get a job doing something else, working in a shop when the shops are open or something, um, so that you can eat at least. But nothing comes to anybody that waits for money before they start a project or waits for an opportunity. You have to create work. You have to create really brilliant work, and you can. And the youngsters are so fantastic. I mean, most of the work that I make now, or I work on now, is not my ideas and it's not my creativity. It's young people coming in with the most extraordinary talent. All I'm doing is giving them a space, or an opportunity. But it's them, young people. I want to see young people and hear their voices. They're so articulate. The youngsters are. They can teach us so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To everyone watching, become a Baxter Coffee Angel. I will certainly
Please
do that immediately.
go to our website.
Yes, and so that I can also listen to a few plays. Just one last thing. I mean, you're doing the awesome matric.
It's not I think it's standard 9, and we're doing a whole lot. Actually, I'll send it to you. We're doing
fantastic. We'll attach it to the video, which will be on the Sunday Times lifestyle site. It will be on our Instagram. We'll make a big song and dance about it. We've posted on the live chat now for people just the www.baxter.co.za, and I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get the Rolex mentors back into the country, the mentor and protege program.
Come by ship. Yeah.
I'll see you soon at the Baxter.
Yeah, take care.
When I can fly to Cape Town. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.